Welcome back to another episode of Chelsea Story Nook Podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Kim, aka your favorite homeroom teacher for shy students to become leaders they can be. This is the show where we dive into their personal journeys, life lesson, and what it truly takes to step out of his shell. And today, we have a wonderful guest joining to share their journey and insight into their latest book and share what it takes to break out of that shell. I'm delighted to welcome our psychotherapist, TEDx speaker, children's book author, Maria Grace Wolk, the author of the book, Hello Flutters, to Chelsea Story Nook Podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Grace. Woo.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for having me. I love your energy. So much fun to be here. I've been, looking forward to our conversation. This is awesome.
I'm super excited, guys. You don't know how I'm so excited. Guys, get scheduling this beautiful lady. It was hard enough. It took years. I'm just kidding. It took a long time. And I'm privileged and honored to have Grace on my podcast. And Grace and I publish our books with the same publishing company. So I have the privilege and witnessing her journey firsthand. And I just really pumped interviewing you, Grace, and while pursuing her doctorate to catch up with her. This is basically like a coffee chat while I'm doing this whole podcast interview at the same time. So I got to catch up with you, Grace. So pursuing her doctorate and working she's also a good friend of mine. I'm so excited to have her on my podcast today. And Grace, could you share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
A little bit about myself. Okay, well, first of all, thank you again for having me. I'm super, super stoked to be here. So glad I'm finally getting to a chat with you. So what a privilege for myself as well, as I also have witnessed your journey. So hello, everyone. My name is Maria Grace Wolk. I am a mother of two boys. I'm a psychotherapist with a private practice here in California. I am a corporate mental health wellness speaker, a TEDx speaker, and now an author. And, at my core, I think I'm a storyteller and a healer, because my work, with all of the things that I do, it's rooted in my belief that mental health should be understood and talked about, and most importantly, normalized. So that is a little bit about me. Let's see, I love to run. I'm on a run streak. Today is my 1,551 days of running every day outside for at least a mile or more. And I do have a half marathon coming up this Sunday. So I'm, didn't even train for that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Wish me luck.
I mean, Grace, every time I see you guys gotta go see her Instagram and her Facebook page. Every time I wake up in the morning, she's already done with her run. She's already done with her exercise. And I'm just waking up, getting my coffee. I'm like, this girl just ran a whole marathon. I'm just kidding. But I mean, like, she's done, guys. She's already done with her day. She's already working. She already dropped off her kids. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And I feel like I feel like I just barely pick. Just go on Instagram and you'll see her run all the time. And now, if that motivates you, go ahead and follow her and like and comment and say, "Go, Grace! You can do it!" while drinking coffee. Aww. Imagine you're introducing your book. I want to know more about your book. A room full of people who have never heard of your book before. How will you describe it? What makes it unique? And what's the deeper message your readers want to take away from?
Hello, Flutters, Tala and Two Tower. This actually is a children's version of my adult book that I'm currently writing called Say Hello to Fear. That's still in the draft mode, but I thought, how fun would it be if I just created a children's version for kids? Because it's just so much more fun to write and to work on, because as a trauma therapist, we always need that outlet to do something more joyful and out of our regular day. So this became my became that outlet for me to get really creative. But Hello Flutters is a story about a young squirrel named Tala. And Tala, by the way, is a Filipino word that means North Star, because I'm Filipino and I speak Tagalog, but just
Mhm.
a little named
Squirrel.
Tala, who
Uh-huh.
who is afraid to fly, and he keeps failing his flying test. And through the story, we he discovers how to instead how to allow this fear to just be there and to befriend it and make it is a story about a story about a young flying squirrel who keeps failing his flying test. And it is a book that helps kids turn their fear into a friend, and it's perfect for kids
Oh.
who feels overwhelmed with their big emotions, and it's good for parents who are looking for mindful tools to support their children, and teachers who are ready to bring mindfulness into their classrooms, because there is a section at the end with mindfulness.
Oh, wow.
Oh shoot, mindfulness techniques and exercises. So
That's
that is my
beautiful.
book, and I'm super happy about how it came out.
I don't
So
know if the audience right now are seeing the video or listening to the podcast right now. You guys got to see the book. It's so beautiful. And I actually bought it and I gave it to one of my friends. I don't have it with me right now. It would be perfect moment if I actually read it and see it right now with you. But it's so beautiful, guys. Did you
oh, thank you.
actually like illustrate and did you like design and display each one of them, or how did you go about that process?
Oh, the illustration process. Oh my goodness. I did design him. I knew exactly
Wow.
what I already wanted him to look like. And then for
Uh-huh.
some reason it's like his face. Sorry, you can't really see. His face is kind of reminds me of like both my boys when they were young. But
Mm.
I knew like how I want the book to look. I kind of sketched it out. I'm not an artist, I'm not an illustrator. I am learning though. Yeah, like everything in here, everything in the book, um, like especially this room. This room has a lot of like
Oh,
my boys'
yeah,
stuff.
that's so
Like
beautiful.
one of my son loves ducks, and there's a little
Oh,
ducky
yeah, I
there,
remember
and
that. That is so
what is that? The
cute.
Rubik's cube, a basketball. So a lot of things in here does have a lot of personal meanings. So that's why it means so much to me. My boys did help me design it and create it,
Mm.
especially this page where we have all the
Oh,
different levels of the Tug Tower. It has a little therapy office right there. That is me.
that's
And
cute.
little music.
Wow.
My son plays the piano and my other son plays the drums. So they're both there. They play basketball. So, anyways, it's fun. There's a lot of things that you can kind of look through with your kids, and just kind of look at all
Yeah.
the details, because my illustrator did a good job, like really capturing what I want.
This is absolutely beautiful, guys. You gotta get it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, right? Is there any other stores that is
It is.
available around your area as well? Where is it
Um,
right now?
Barnes and Nobles online,
Oh,
right? Barnes and
cool.
Nobles, and just Amazon for now. But hopefully in more places we'll see how it
Oh,
goes.
that's so cool.
Hey there, listeners. Before we go back to the podcast interview, if you love our podcast and want to reach out and engage audience, we got great news. We're now accepting brand deals, sponsorships, and promotion. Whether you're a brand looking to connect with passionate listeners or a business wanting to make an impact, we love to collaborate. Reach us out at chelseastorynook@gmail.com to discuss how we can feature your brand in our episodes. Let's create something amazing together. Now, back to the show.
And I want to know, like, how did you become an author in the first place? Because every author's journey is totally different. And pivotal moment or challenges that shaped your path to become a writer yourself?
As a writer, well, I've been journaling since I learned how to write. So writing has
Mm,
always been just a part of my life. I write every day. I write about what happened during the day. I just like to document things. I think it's a way
mhm,
for me to reflect
mm,
on myself, and I think that's such a great practice when you want to work on mindfulness
mm,
techniques. But really,
mm,
to write this book in particular, it was because when I first started working as a therapist and I was working with kids, I was really shocked to find that there were very little children's books that talked about mental health. And I couldn't find a good one. I would find
mm,
one here and there, but it wasn't what I wanted to show the kids that I was working with.
mm,
So this was a huge gap. And I remember thinking that, I'm going to have to change that. So,
mm.
so I did. But I do
Great.
believe that kids, they learn best through stories and through pictures. So how, because they're so visual and they're so
Mm,
imaginative, right? Kids are.
mm,
And when they see a character that's going through some emotions, that they're struggling with, or something just clicks and they're able to kind
mm,
of see themselves as this character, it makes
mm,
those big, sometimes overwhelming feelings feel less scary and more understandable. And just, I think this is a great tool because it'll anchor that message with whatever we want to teach them. um, to It'll just help them see and get the message about emotions and feelings and how to understand them because of the pictures, right?
mhm.
That's just how the
Yeah.
mind and the brain works as a child. So but this book isn't just for kids, it's also for the adults in their lives.
Yeah.
They're caretakers because so many of us, like myself, we grew up without the words to talk about our emotions. And,
Mm,
I didn't learn, how to navigate my emotions until I became a therapist. So that's exactly why
right.
I wrote this, not just to help the kids process their feelings, but also to help the people who love them build stronger connections and understand our emotions so we don't just heal, we grow closer, we communicate better, and
Right.
we create like that kind of relationship that's really strong and lasting,
Mm.
right? And that is
Yeah.
why often when I get like Asians in my therapy office, when I see them as a client, most of them who are a little bit in the older generation, right? The younger generations, they're definitely different. They're more open and
Mm,
can easily talk about their emotions. But I think the older generations would talk, and then they would maybe talk about what happened and talk about their family, and then they would feel a lot of shame and regret, and sometimes they don't
yes.
come back because they feel so
Yes.
bad that they talked badly about them.
Mm.
um, but that is the stigma around emotions and going to therapy.
Afraid of their expression through their emotions and everything. But again, I think as growing up, I can tell them like, hey, don't worry, buddy. Like, it's okay to feel
Mhm.
this way. And I get to help them now because I'm the older generation where I could be like, that's okay. I felt that way. And it's okay to be beautiful this way. It's okay to bring your food. You know what? Just eat what Mrs. Kim, what culture is really like. And that's why my book is very diverse and everything like that, which kind of introducing the diversity of how it's very
Mhm.
beautiful. We're embracing our differences. Doesn't matter who you are and all that good stuff. And I think it's the beauty of it, how you express through everything, where you come from, how you express through your emotions. You get to teach that to the kids too. And I think that's my job as a teacher, as an author. And I hope that this whole world we get to teach that.
Understand where you're coming from. It's especially right now. with what's happening in our world today, right? I can feel your passion about it,
Mm-hmm.
about embracing the uniqueness and everybody's differences, and how um, everyone can only shine if they're, really, really proud of who they are, truly, deeply
For sure.
within them, and
Mm-hmm.
not conforming and not blending in. It's there's no fun in that. There's no fun in blending in, right?
Yeah,
But
agree.
also, like these kids that become ashamed to bring their food, they don't really learn that. They only learn it when someone makes fun of them, right? Like when someone
Mm-hmm.
says something. Because I'm sure the
Mm-hmm.
first time they brought it, they were fine. They were excited because this is my food. This is my culture. I'm going to
Yeah.
eat it. I'm going to go to school and eat my favorite food. And then they open their Tupperware or whatever it is in, and someone says something, right?
Yes.
And makes fun of them. And that's when
Mm.
they start to crawl
Mm.
into their shell. And that experience changes them. So it's really, we should be focusing on the one that is making fun of them, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not okay,
Yeah.
right? To learn your manners and behave better, and be okay when something doesn't smell like you like it. You know what I mean? Like if something smells different, it does, you don't point it out and laugh about it.
Right,
You
right.
just become curious about it, like, oh, that smells that has a really interesting smell. It's like teaching them how to communicate in a more positive, kind, warm, loving way, instead of reacting with laughter, and because they don't realize how much that is hurtful and traumatizing for a young child, even if it's just like
Yeah.
they don't know, right?
This whole thing could just be a podcast itself. This whole because this whole topic of a teacher perspective versus a parent's perspective, like coming from like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what's going on behind the scene that we don't see at school and what's going on behind the scene at home. Because me, I don't have a kid yet. But what I see throughout the whole 6 hours of school, parents don't see at home too, because really comes hand in hand to work as a collaboration to make this child a beautiful child as best as we can be, to make this world a better place. But again, we're not all perfect. We're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to make a perfect child. We're trying to make a better, cohesive, beautiful leader they can be. The better way
Yeah.
to express everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if we just need to teach them how to take ownership of their behavior, if everyone can just take ownership of their own behavior, we don't have to worry
Yes.
about anyone else, right? Because everyone's going to be worried about how they're going to react to things, and respond to things, and talk to other kids, and how to be more kinder. If every little kids are taught to own own
Mm-hmm.
how they behave, then they'll be
Uh-huh.
more mindful of how they treat other people.
I
It's
know.
just kids, right? Working with kids, I'm sure you get it. It's so heartbreaking when it's like, oh
It
my
is.
gosh, I just want to help you, and sometimes you can't, right? Because we don't have control over who they go home to. Maybe the trouble is at home. Maybe the trouble is, you don't know,
Mm,
right? So yes.
exactly. The whole balancing multiple roles. I want to know. You juggle several roles: therapist, mother, author,
Mhm.
speaker, and podcast host. How do you do these different identities intersect and influence each other? What's the biggest lesson you learned from wearing so many hats?
So many hats. I know, it's funny that hearing you say that, I'm like reflecting, and I'm thinking, I do wear a lot of hats, right? A therapist, a mother, an author, a speaker, a podcast host. They seem like separate roles, but to me, they're all connected, right? Because each one has shaped how I see mental health, resilience, and growth.
Mhm.
Um, based on the people that I see and how I see myself. But like the therapist in me, I see how often people think mental health struggles are personal flaws and something that they need to fix about themselves. But the truth is, most of what we call disorders are actually just natural responses to a world that doesn't always support our well-being, right? We live in a culture that glorifies burnout, right? To
Right.
always be productive, but that doesn't support our well-being. And our society teaches us to suppress our emotions instead of understanding them, right? Like, don't cry, stop crying, and or you'll be seen as weak, right? And
Right.
suppressing our emotions is so bad for you, by the way.
Mm.
So healing to me isn't just an individual thing. It's about changing the system that we live in. So that's all the part of healing for me as a therapist. But the mother in me as a mom, I see the patterns, like what you were talking about. It gets passed down. Kids don't come into the world anxious or disconnected, right? They learn it. They see it from other people, and they don't just learn from what we tell them. It's how we show them, how we model it, right?
Right.
And kids learn, as you know, kids learn better when they are modeled it instead of
Right.
told what to do, right? And I think that emotions, we were raised to believe that emotions should be hidden, and if we did that to our kids, then they'll pick that up too. So I think that to me, it's a lot of unlearning that I have to do. So to unlearn the part of me that likes to stay small, or have learned to stay small or stay quiet. That is something that I'm really mindful of not to pass on to my kids. And again, the author, the speaker in me, I translate, I use my platform, I use my voice to vocalize, or my experiences to help others feel normal. The way we talk about ourselves, it really matters. And and if we say that I'm broken, we approach healing from a place of damage. But if we say that I'm learning to reconnect with myself, we create that space for growth. So I think what the words we say, the words we say to others is really important. So the how you're turning this podcast and sharing with others, people's experiences, that helps people feel more motivated and inspired. And one of the biggest myths I wish more people would question is that our strength, mean, how people like suppress their emotions.
Yeah.
People think that that's being strong when you're not showing your emotions, but really strength is when you are naming your pain and you're allowing others to support you, to feel supported, instead of pretending that you're fine, because that is actually weakness instead of strength, right? When you're just masking every time, you're afraid that people will know that you're suffering. That is not strength. So asking for help, that is strength to me. So, I mean, again, like through my podcast, I'm reminded that healing doesn't happen in isolation. It really happens when we can really reflect and listen to others' journey, to ourselves, and just allow ourselves to be seen. So that is all of my roles kind of jammed together. And again, it's all under the umbrella of one mission, and that is to normalize mental health and to always, really be proud of who we are, and be able to connect deeply with ourselves.
Wow, that
So
is amazing. I feel like I
that is
had
all
a
of me.
therapist.
I'm like,
Wow.
I'm sorry.
No,
Well,
don't say
I like that
sorry.
reflection. I like that reflection about how I do tie those in together because again, like when we speak, we're reflecting, and sometimes the words
Yes.
just come out, and you're like, oh, and that's how therapy works, right? You just talk, and you're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. Even like to me, that totally makes sense.
Yes, I mean, this is my podcast is about. It's basically we're like catching up, but at the same time, the inner you is breaking out of the shell where we're shining this moment where we're actually chatting, we're catching up, we're interviewing. Yes, we're showing the world who you are. How do you break your challenges, become this huge leader, TEDx speaker, amazing author, a mother, a podcast host. Yes, all those titles are so amazing and it's shiny and beautiful, beautiful trophy in your hands. But at the end, you're just a human. You're a beautiful person, a child of God, someone that you think that is so precious to you. At the end, you're just a human being trying to express yourself who you want to be. And that's what I want to express at in this podcast. And that's why I'm just listening because not only this interview is just for me or for you or for the media, it's just for yourself. Because at the end, when you look at this podcast and you look back to this, you're like, wow, that was me. Oh, look how grown I am after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Because, as long as YouTube is here, like this is going to be for you. And I want that for you. So, I want to go ahead and talk about your TEDx experience. And that is
Oh,
amazing.
okay.
Hopefully, one day I can get on that. I mean, again, I think our listeners really want to know your experience on that. And getting on a TEDx stage is a huge milestone. But can you take us behind the scene of that journey? And how did you get the opportunity? And what was the biggest takeaway from that experience? What was the process like? And how did you feel on that stage, that red logo stage?
Yeah. It's let me think back. I'm just gonna go a little bit back when I was see, I was like sitting in my office here. And this is my office. I was sitting in my office. I was typing away, working on my stuff, and usually my kids would just, come in and say hello. And so my kids came home from school, and at the time, Gavin's my oldest, and he was in sixth grade at the time. So I'm sitting in my office, I'm typing away some notes, and he comes in, and I ask him, oh, how's your day, sweetie, and what'd you do today? And he's going, oh, it was good, right? And then so I like ask him more question. I said, so what'd you do in class? And he said, oh, we watched TED Talk in class because every Tuesday we get to watch TED Talks
Mm,
in his classroom.
mm,
And I paused and I said, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do one. And then without missing a beat, he goes, then why don't you? That's what he tells me. Like it's the simplest thing in the world. Like exactly like I was like you. I'm like that. Are you kidding me? Like you just made it sound like okay, well, why don't you go get one? Like you could buy it off at the grocery store. So
yeah.
I almost laughed, right? And I start to tell him how
Oh my
competitive it is
gosh.
and how hard it is
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
these things take time. But then I stopped
Yeah.
myself and I thought, wait,
Yeah.
this is actually a teaching moment, a teaching opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about that. I'm always saying, I always tell my kids to be brave, to go after what excites them, and to take that first
Mm-hmm.
step, even when they're unsure, and even when they're afraid. That my whole thing is like doing it
Right.
when you're afraid, and even when I know I'm probably not going to get any responses, I can also teach him how to handle rejection, right? So it was like a
Wow.
two things in
Mm-hmm.
one. So I was like prepared for that. So instead of
Right.
brushing it off, like I sit down with him and I said, okay, well, let's do some research. I pulled out my laptop and we started researching how to pitch a TED Talk, blah, blah, blah. So I don't even overthink it. So I just like went ahead and sent out my pitch, right? Just sent out a pitch. Um, I was just expecting silence, like, there's no way, right? But then I think like several weeks later, I get an email and I tell him, and then I tell my son, I said, I got an email and they want me to audition. And he grins and he's like, yeah, of course. Like he knew it all along. Like yeah, like he just really believed in me
Wow.
so much. And that made me feel like, okay, if he believes in me so much, I'm gonna like really go for this, right? And
Wow.
in that moment, I realized something, that we make things harder in our heads than they actually are. And sometimes, like, the only thing standing between us and what we want is that decision to just go for it, without
Right.
over analyzing, without assuming that we'll fail, just doing it. And that moment is that he
Ooh.
taught me that, like,
Mm.
why not just go for it? And yeah, I did the audition, and I practiced over and over with them during piano lessons. I mean, my kids had my talk memorized because I was memorizing it in the car. I was memorizing it at football practice, and then they were my little my judge. They would tell me like, "Oh, I didn't really understand this part, Mama." And so, yeah. And
Yeah.
so finally, when the date comes and it was the day of the talk, oh my God. Like, so I was drinking a lot of water because I know how, like when I do talks, I know how sometimes I would get like dry mouth and I can't talk to go on my first podcast interview. And I was having like an anxiety attack
Oh
because
my gosh.
I was worried and I
I
was anxious and I was like scared, and I was doing my deep breaths. But so that day I had to make sure I ran, I drank, and as soon as I got on the stage and the light went turned on, I started talking, and all of a sudden I couldn't feel my mouth.
oh no.
Like I was like numb. I'm like, what is happening? It's
Oh
like all
no.
my, I think, when you're so anxious, your mouth just like gets really dried up. And I'm like, this whole
Oh
time
my
I've been
gosh.
practicing for months, and this day is finally here, and I'm like so
Oh
in
my
trouble.
gosh.
Like I don't even know how my words were coming out because I couldn't feel my tongue. It was That's what happened. But I guess it turned out okay because I just went on along with it, and yeah, thank God they couldn't really tell that I was struggling to talk, but that's got to be a sign of anxiety. No matter how much water you drink, if you're going to be anxious, you're going to be anxious. So at that moment, I just knew I'm going to have fear. I know that's going to be there. That was the fear, like
Oh
trying
my
to
gosh.
take over. My fear was trying to say, hey, this is not your thing. What are you doing? You're afraid to speak in public. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. But, I took a deep breath and I just said, you know what? It's okay. I'll be fine. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. I'm doing big things. So let's just I got this. So I had to do that. Like while I'm on stage, I'm thinking through that. I'm like, okay, I just gotta get through this. 14 more minutes. Let me not forget any
Um,
lines. But uh, but that's what
oh
yeah, my
my
whole family,
gosh.
and my boys. So it was a great experience. I was proud of myself, really proud of myself. And yes, I'm like an introvert, so definitely didn't love public speaking. Took a while for me to really get comfortable. I mean, I still get nervous. I think we all do. I think no matter what, we're always going to have that fear. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
whole main point of my book, is this, to kind of have fear and be okay to go forward and move forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
fear is just letting us know that we're stepping out of our comfort zone. We are
Right.
widening our comfort zone, and we were doing
Right.
something that we've never done before. So of course we're going to feel
Right.
uncertainty, but of course we're going to be worried that, of course we're not going to know how it's going to turn out. And if we just trust ourselves that no matter what happens, we're going to be gentler with ourselves. We're just going to be kinder and not beat ourselves up when we do make a mistake, then everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. And let's just say something goes wrong with that TED talk. I think I'll be fine. We'll just probably have to re-record it again or something. I don't know. We'll just say, "Hey, audience, I made a mistake. Let me start." You know what I mean? It's like not
Yeah.
being afraid of what can go wrong. And once you release that, oh my God, you can do so much more. There's so much you can do without fear. I mean, if fear
Well,
doesn't hold you back.
Guys, this is why I have Grace in our podcast because this is why I needed her to be in our podcast. She is inspiration. This is what our generation needs and why my shy little students out there needs to shine and just step out of your comfort zone. It doesn't mean you need to be the loudest one in the room. It doesn't need to, you don't need to be like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm gonna be the winner, you know? No, it means
Mm,
just stepping out one by one, facing your fears, getting over with like stepping, like this is a stepping stone. No one said to you to
mhm,
get on I'm sorry, TEDx stage, right? No one told you to do that,
mhm.
but it was your own goal to face that fear.
Oh,
That's a boss lady for me.
thank
You're so
you.
cool.
That means a lot.
Yeah, going with that. Fear holds a lot of
Hmm.
people's back from chasing their dreams, like you said, right? And
Hmm.
how how have you personally dealt with fear in your journey? And for those aspiring to be therapists like yourself, authors, or public speakers, but are afraid to
Hmm.
take that leap, what advice would you give? Were you ever a shy person yourself? And if so, what helped you break through that?
I mean, I am shy. I think I am still shy. I'm a shy person.
Me too.
But I think, but it's so funny because I always tell my husband that I'm an introvert and he doesn't believe me because, I'm shy, but I think that I am, I'm alive when I'm with people that I know really well, right? Like I have
Yeah.
to really know you and I have to feel comfortable.
Mm,
But then in a big
right,
setting, I can, yeah, I just want to hide sometimes.
right,
But
right.
that's me. Like I'm not a really outgoing person. I love my alone time and sitting at home and doing things by myself, but I do enjoy being with a group of people that I do love and care for and that I know. And I guess meeting new people too. I do enjoy meeting new people. Just a lot of crowds sometimes takes a lot of my energy. But with me, with fear, I learned over time that it isn't something that you overcome or you fight or push away because fear is our natural response. Again, like what we've been talking about this entire podcast, it's like stepping into something bigger than yourself is going to cause you to feel this certain way. And it's like understanding what that feeling is. And when I was, whether it's working towards my doctorate or, starting my career as a therapist and writing this book, fear was right there with me all along. And,
Right,
it shows up still. But I've learned that with fear, it's just a signal that, oh, you're moving towards something that matters, right?
right,
This is
right.
a good sign. It's almost like you're embracing your fear instead of like
Mm,
keeping you stuck. And for anyone who dreams of becoming a therapist, earning their doctorate, or some stepping into something new that they've always wanted to do but feel scared, I want you to know
mm,
that fear doesn't mean that you're not capable. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. It just means that you're again, you're stepping out of something that you're not familiar with. And our brain
mm,
will always signal when something is not familiar and it's going to alert you that, hey, wait a second, you
right,
don't know this area, you better step back, right? That's our brain
right,
protecting us. And
right.
it just means you're stepping out of your comfort zone. So if you want to achieve a lot of big things in life, you need to start feeling comfortable with that discomfort of stepping outside your comfort zone. So you have to
Right.
understand what it feels like in your body when you're doing something new, when you're doing something that you've always wanted to do, but like
Mm,
maybe your heart starts um, beating really fast and you think that it's like a sign for you to not do it because what is the fear? Like, understand,
mm,
what is your fear? Do you feel like you're going to die when you do this? Like, really rationalize the fear,
right.
right? Because
Mm,
you want to broaden your comfort zone. The more you do hard things,
oh,
the wider it gets, and the wider your a comfort zone gets, the bigger your goals, right? When you do small things, take those little steps. The key isn't to wait until the fear disappears. It's
Mm,
it's walking with it. It's doing
mm,
it, doing things with your fear. Get curious about it. Ask yourself, okay, I'm
mm,
feeling fear. What is it trying to protect me from? And then you remind yourself that growth has, never lived inside comfort, right? So
mm.
you have to
Right.
feel discomfort. You have to feel this fear in order to grow. That is how resilience thrive. So again, your question, was I ever shy? Absolutely. I guess, yeah, there are plenty of times I doubted myself. There's plenty of times I worry. There's plenty of times I feel like I'm not good enough, but I just stopped letting fear be the loudest voice in the room. I just, what helped me is, again, taking that one small step at a time, proving to myself that, I could do this. I could do this. You just
Mm.
you just have to do it for yourself and not for others. And it means a lot. And now I'm getting a little emotional, but thank you.
Oh,
That's very kind. So that's
well,
why I'm asking, like, oh, what came up for you? Just something really deep came up for you, and
well,
you
let
don't
me
have
drink some
to
water too.
share this,
But
of course. But I'd
well,
be
what
yeah,
came
be
up to
interested
me
in
was
knowing.
while you're talking to me, while coming up with these questions and researching about you, and starting this whole podcast for me, I was like, wow, look where I came. And I wouldn't be here if I took that I can mindset. And if I did not say yes to that decision of making a children's book, I wouldn't be here. Honestly, I wouldn't take that step of saying, maybe I should write that book, or maybe should I make this podcast? I don't know. That fear would have got me, and I would have been in my classroom teaching the kids, which I didn't mind. I love teaching. I would have been in that classroom teaching the kids no matter what. I'll be teaching whenever I'm 60, 80, whatever it takes. But I had something in me where I want to go beyond the walls. I want to surpass those classroom walls and really touch base on a lot of professionals out there. What can I do to have those people and learn from them more than teachers itself, and interview them one day, or maybe I could make it write a book, right? And touch people's hearts, children's heart, because that was my passion anyways, and have kids really look up to you guys and say like, oh, I want to be her one day, I want to be him one day, where I one day I hope I can have a hopefully I can have a little, or a group of young ladies who look up to me and say like, oh my god, Chelsea, we're fans of you because you wrote this book, or you did this podcast, or all these things. And one day, hopefully, they're writing their notes down, you know? And that just hit me. I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is like, wow, was this in my vision board? I don't know. I just hit me. I just wanted to share that with
That's
you. I don't know if
awesome.
that was
Yeah,
what you were
thank
looking
you.
for, but just expressing through my
No,
stories and looking back.
I And honestly, Chelsea, I think you're doing an amazing job. I'm so
Oh,
proud of you. You're like, everything you do is like so beautiful. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing at, if this is new to you, like your podcast, your book, it's amazing. All of it, all the things that you're doing are I would say is successful, right? Like, you're doing an amazing job. You're
ah,
doing exactly what you want to do, and I think that speaks very highly of like what you can do if you put your heart into it. And I believe that there's a lot of people out there already inspired by you. So know that you are also an inspiration to many.
oh.
and
Well,
I also know, and I also know that you're feeling uncomfortable when you are complimented because it's
I
something that we're not
know.
used to.
It's the culture in us. We don't take compliments. We're like, oh my
I
goodness.
know.
Let's
It's like, stop it.
let's
Don't talk about me.
I
No,
know,
but
right? The tension
be
is
proud of
here, right?
yourself.
Oh,
You should
thank
be
you
proud
so
of yourself.
much. Oh,
Mhm.
thank you. I will take it. I always take credit, and I always like, do I deserve this credit? Because like all this credit comes from God. I mean, He's the one who gave me this gift. And I give credit to my children, like I'm talking about my students, the
Yeah.
teachers, professors, my friends and family who pray for me. I mean, it's all credits to you guys, credits to those who actually supported me on these journeys, and also for myself. I give my credit to myself who believed in myself and really believed what I can do and capable myself. And look where I am, guys. I'm actually meeting a doctor therapist. Wow. This is amazing.
To be here and be connected with you.
This is
It's such an
amazing.
honor to be connected, right? Like I love meeting, new people and knowing their stories. And I can't wait to hear about your story.
I know, I
In my
can't wait
podcast.
either. Well, in your podcast, which I'm doing after this one. And I want to know, Maria, if our listeners are listening right now, how far they are listening, if they're really engaging. I want to know, what should they comment and let us know in the comment section below? If they're paying attention to this podcast right now, what should they comment below at this moment, if they're still listening to us?
If you're listening still, what will you do the next time fear shows up for you?
Ooh. What should they do?
Because there's this thing I tell people to do, and I could share it now. And okay, if they're done typing, I want you to, like, when your fear shows up for you, and I do this all the time because I do this with my clients and I do this with children, but I want you to kind of really scan your body and notice where you feel the fear, right? And Chelsea, you can do it. Just close your eyes and just scan your body. And if you're feeling any kind of fear, where do you feel it in your body? And just notice that fear. You're feeling it. Where do you feel it? And just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just kind of notice the fear. And if you can, like, name it, visualize it, give it a color, a name, and then just kind of say hello to it. Just say, hello, fear. What's up? What's going on? What are you trying to protect me from this time? Are we doing something big? What are you trying to protect me from? And just kind of understand it. And it'll give you an answer. It'll say, I'm trying to protect you from doing something, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, whatever it is. And just acknowledge it and know that it's there. And then you can say, I know you're afraid and I know you're trying to protect me, but I think I'm going to do this because I think it's good for me to try new things. So it's almost like it's befriending your fear. And then you go on with your day. So that's when anytime your anxiety, your worries, even if it's a worry, even if it's anything that comes up, if you're trying to do something that you're really fearful of or anxious about or really second guessing yourself, just remind yourself that, fear is your companion. It's almost like your intuition too. Make it work for you.
Wow. Man, I'm so curious what our comment will say and what colors and what name you guys named it. That fear. Wow. I'm so curious what they got to say. We'll see how many comments we have in our comment section. Guys, comment right now. We'll give you 5 seconds. Wow, that's amazing. Best way our listeners could follow you and stay informed into your latest work.
Let's see. My website is mariagracewolk.com. I'm on Instagram, I'm Maria Grace Wolk. And also my YouTube channel is The Grace Matrix. YouTube at The Grace Matrix. I think that you'll have it on the show notes, right?
Yes.
And that's where I put out a lot of mental health tips, techniques. So I hope you also subscribe to my channel.
Yes.
I took a break from it last year, but this year I'm putting a little bit more, I'm putting more content out there to help others manage their emotions, anxiety, worries, because it's doesn't have to, be a barrier to your goals and dreams. It's something that you can work with. We're all in this together. You're not alone.
Right. Awesome. Again, that sounds all exciting. Again, thank you for the therapy session. Thank you for all your insight. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for giving us a little of the therapy session. I mean, thank you so much, Grace, for joining us and sharing your insights. It's truly been a pleasure having you on my podcast.
It's so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to our guest, Maria Grace Wolk, the author of the book Hello Flutters, for sharing their story and wisdom. I'll have all her information in the link description below. So be sure to follow Grace on all her journey. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If today's episode, Chelsea Story Nook Podcast, resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with someone who needs a little confidence boost. You can also connect with me, Miss Chelsea, your favorite homeroom teacher for shy students to become leaders they can be, on Instagram at ChelseaStory_Nook, and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Chelsea Story Nook Podcast. Until next time, keep growing, keep shining, and remember, your story is worth sharing. Take care, everyone, and carry it on. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in today's episode of Chelsea Story Nook Podcast, Shy to Shine, your gateway to success. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who could use a little inspiration. We love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know your biggest takeaway from today's episode. Until next time, keep growing, keep shining, and always remember your story is worth sharing. And let's carry it on.